What is up, potato chips? Welcome back to ciNATEmatic. You have many choices in online film critics and movie fans, so thank you for choosing me. Now I know this video is a bit different from my channel, but honestly I was inspired by this video I saw about the bankruptcy of Hooters by a guy named Bright Sun Films, and I wanted to make a similar style video about Victoria's Secret and its fall from grace. How it went from this powerhouse of a lingerie brand with worldwide recognition, beloved by both men and women, down to a sad shell of its former self. But to get to its fall, we must first start from the very beginning. For those of you who don't know, or at least haven't seen 2010's hit film The Social Network, Victoria's Secret started off as an idea from the mind of Roy Raymond, a man who was once so embarrassed trying to buy lingerie for his wife in public, as well as worried about looking like some sort of freak, not to mention also being appalled by lackluster options, that one day he decided to take things into his own hands. In 1977, Victoria's Secret opened its first store at the Stanford Shopping Center in Palo Alto, California. I'm honestly not surprised that this company started within that state. His original vision for the store was a place where both men and women would feel welcome to explore. At the time of the store's inception, lingerie wasn't a wide market. It was clothing reserved for only the most rare occasions. Lingerie was considered a niche product in this yesteryear. Seeing his opening, he borrowed 40 grand from his family and another 40 grand from the bank, and had finally started the first step in his empire, the store being named after Queen Victoria and the regality of the Victorian era, whereas the secret part of the brand came from the clothing being concealed beneath outerwear, such as shirts and pants. Victoria's Secret boomed within its first year, grossing a total of 500 grand in sales, or around 2.5 million in 2026 standards. This allowed for Roy Raymond to pave the pathway for 4 more stores, the final new addition outgrowing its building in 1990, moving to an even larger venue. But even with this wild success, the underwear game was still considered niche. It needed something to bring it to the forefront. They needed something to stand out, but it would still be a while before they found out exactly what that driving force would be. In 1982, the 5th store was opened, and Roy Raymond had decided that his time with the company was up, selling the business to Les Wexner for $1 million, which honestly sounds kind of low, but for back then and for the company still paving its way, at the time it was a fair deal. Les Wexner immediately got to work and shifted the brand's focus almost solely to women, highlighting their product's luxury yet practicality, as well as its brand new selection of colors. Under his leadership, the company became a mainstay in the public eye. The existing store setups were revitalized, meant to immerse the shopper deeper within the Victorian aesthetic, while at the same time the catalog of their selections became more mainstream. News outlets such as the New York Times now viewed lingerie as romantic and alluring, not niche and embarrassing. This word of mouth caused other companies to follow in Victoria's Secret's footsteps, making their own catalogs of attractive women modeling their products proudly. Under a new president, Howard Gross, in 1986, Victoria's Secret was the only company devoted solely to lingerie, meaning it had carved out its niche and had succeeded in making its own market. It was even stealing sales from regular department stores at this stage. In 1987, the brand now had 100 stores, and the visuals of its attractive models were starting to catch on, with their catalog being listed as one of the highest sellers, but still it was missing that something it needed to become a household name. Moving on to the 90s, there was a bit of a rocky start for the brand, with a few quality control issues within the first few years of the decade. But thanks to a new president of the company, Grace Nichols, it quickly regained its footing. Grace expanded their inventory for the first time. Now they were selling its own fragrances and cosmetics, a pairing that almost seemed too obvious. While these did indeed help sales, the heaviest hitter and idea from Grace Nichols was the introduction of the now iconic Miracle Bra, aka their first ever fantasy bra. Thanks to this achievement, they were now starting to get rivals such as Sara Lee and her Wonder Bra. This meant that Victoria's Secret had to react, and react they did, beginning with the television campaign in 1994, advertising their products with the hottest models known to man, as well as the first ever Victoria's Secret fashion show in 1995. As the 90s continued, the company had now found its hard hitters: cosmetics, fragrances, commercials, fashion shows, and in 1997, their iconic mascots, the Angels. Now before we get to the absolute icons that were Adriana Lima, Alessandra Ambrosio, Candace Swain-Poll, led many times by Michael Bay of all people, we start with the models Helena Christensen, Karen Mulder, Stephanie Seymour, and Tyra Banks, the OG beauties. In the Angels' first ever on-screen appearance, they are seen within the clouds having playful banter against one another, accompanied by singer Tom Jones. The vibe is pretty cheeky, and they make it clear that they are a spin on Angels, but truthfully very much their own thing. Although not the jewelry-esque fashion pieces, this was also the first ever time Victoria's Secret would use the wing concept upon their models. The production at this point was indeed going for a much more regal and high-class aesthetic, but the sultry vibe was still very much present, just not as front and center as it would become in the 2000s. After 1997, the term angel became synonymous with the brand. Officially dubbed angels were held to to a higher standard than the typical model, especially within the company. Official angels would make appearances in marketing campaigns, talk shows, and runway shows, including the trademark yearly fashion show. In 1998, the angels made their first ever runway appearance at the 4th ever Victoria's Secret fashion show, and here we would see the iconic catwalks, wings, and bras. Here history was made. In May 2000, the company would receive another shift in creativity as the CEO Cynthia Field stepped down during a time of great prosperity for the brand. While she was in power, the image held by the company and its product was described as in accordance to the sensibilities of what a European woman would wear. But after her departure, the sexiness was ramped up to the 10th power, now being described as blatantly sexy. Ironically, the new CEO, Sharon Jester Turney, at the time, described the previous looks of the brand as similar to that of what a hooker would wear, among other things, and wanted to appeal to so-called upscale customers. In 2004, the company would step back from a fashion show due to the Super Bowl controversy of Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake, and instead focus on a tour titled Angels Across America. A tour led by Bombshell spokeswomen Tyra Banks, Gisele Bündchen, Adriana Lima, and Alessandra Ambrosio. Absolute icons. By 2006, the company had come a long way, with now 1,000 stores available to visit. In May of the same year, Sharon Jester Turney had been promoted from CEO to lead the entirety of the company. Before the year was up, she focused upon making their catalogs feel more like high-end magazines worth a read. Throughout 2007, the interest and reach of the Victoria's Secret Angels continued to flourish. They were now featured among lists of the most beautiful people in the world, even managing to receive their own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In 2008, Dutz and Crows, who you may know as one of the Amazonians from Wonder Woman, joined the Angels roster as the group attended the grand reopening of one of Miami's most popular hotels. In 2009, the company held a nationwide hunt for the next Victoria's Secret runway angel. The contest was a success, but the model soon personally felt convicted and uncomfortable in the provided clothes the model, and decided that it was best to leave the brand behind, eventually becoming an author skewed toward Christian values. This time period is when the brand reached the peak of their sexiness, partnering with Transformers director, yes, him, to shoot various commercials utilizing their scorching talent. In 2010, the brand held the Bombshell Tour, a tour that resulted in the Queen herself, Candace Swainpole, becoming an official angel for the brand. As the years went by, tours such as the 2012 VSX Tour and the 2013 Swim Tour continued to propel interest in the brand. In 2015, the brand showcased their first ever special that wasn't their synonymous fashion show. This time, they were advertising their brand of swimwear, utilizing the bodies of models such as Elsa Hosk, Martha Hunt, Stella Maxwell, Laia Ribeiro, among many other gorgeous women. Here is where we hit the crest of the wave, so to speak. This is where we begin the company's fall from grace. In 2016, Turney would step down, and the company would be split into 3 separate divisions, each with their own CEO. Sales soon would drop and stagnate in early 2017. The company would also cut ties with Michael Bay, ending one of their biggest driving forces of their sexy marketing. In late 2018, the world was a different place. Activists were popping up left and right, some with good causes, others with bad. This was when companies decided they would rather listen to their bullies instead of their loyal customers and demographics. The same year, their chief of marketing made some controversial comments to said groups. In 2019, the company had turned their backs on their loyal customers. They had completely abandoned their image of sexy bombshell supermodels and high-end underwear, and suddenly allowed everyone to join the roster. They no longer held themselves to the standard that made them successful, and the company was feeling it. Listening to an activist shareholder, they dumped what made them who they were, and got rid of practically all the male input across the board. Even women, who had been with the company for nearly 20 years, such as Executive VP April Holey, felt the backlash and stepped down from the company. In November 2019, practically all of the previous creatives were gone, and their famous fashion show was disbanded, and the Angels as we knew them were no more. For the next few years, the company could hardly be recognized. The models looked nothing like what they used to. The sexy ads were nowhere to be seen. It had lost nearly all of its charm and appeal toward men, and outcries from women who had long time respected the brand and dreamed of becoming an angel were pouring out their disappointment. There were also some wild accusations and things said to have been going on behind the scenes floating around in this era that were not a good look at all. But speaking strictly as the consumer, the company was now its very own nemesis. The term angel was now being used as a sort of rank, held by only a few of the classic heavy hitters such as Adriana Lima. But this didn't mean they got to dress sexy or even really participate. They were merely just kept around for points, it seemed. In 2021, the term angels was completely cast out altogether, and the company had been sold. Now, instead of ads depicting beautiful women in their brand of underwear, trying to sell what the company sold, the company now partnered with a diverse set of celebrity women and had sort of like a talk show vibe. I actually don't remember this even lasting too long. Even they must have got sick of it. Still, in 2021, the parent company of Victoria's Secret, L Brands, spun the company off to become independent, which worked to increase its waning sales. But interest by the original customers and the average consumer could barely be salvaged. In 2023, after years of struggling, rumbles were heard that the brand wanted to course correct. News outlets such as New York Post claimed that it was ditching its woke feminist overhaul in favor of remnants of its sexier past. In 2024, the fashion show was brought back, this time in its most sloppy production ever. There were even rumors that it wouldn't feature angels at all, just random people. This turned out to be somewhat true and false, as we got mostly untalented so-called models with a mix of a few legendary angels. But even their inclusion wasn't enough to save this fire. The show was criticized online heavily from viewers. Women were disappointed by the outfittings, the production, the lack of professionalism from the models' walks and cheap-looking wings, not to mention the lack of their once iconic fantasy bra. Word on the street was, even Adriana Lima didn't like what the crew made her wear for the show, according to a presumed fan that allegedly met her afterwards. What drew the most positivity online, and from word of mouth, was the appearance and stylings of Blackpink's Lalisa, who was an absolute vision of beauty and put all the other participants to shame. From 2024 through 2025, more of the feminism faded away, but it was still not enough to win back the hearts of those the brand had burned. The supermodels they did allow were still being totally underutilized, and it was seeming as if the brand's relationships with these women had been strained. In 2025, another fashion show was held, this time leagues better than the monstrosity that was 2024's. Women online demanded a higher quality and petitioned to see bombshell blowouts, a name for the once illustrious hair of the angel models. The walks were more professional, the outfits were sexier, they even opened up the show with respecting some of their most famous angels. Women like Candace Swainpole and Bella Hadid captivated both men and women alike, praising their appearances for their professionalism, beauty, and 2000s vibes. The show still wasn't without its own hiccups though, and the viewers still hoped for an increase in overall quality. How could a company that once had Britney Spears at the height of her fame wear $1 million fantasy bra fall so far? The company to many felt like a shell of itself. One foot in the woke, so to speak, and one foot in what made the brand pop. But rumors suggest that the brand will continue to delve back into what made them famous and beloved, a rumor elevated by evidence thanks to Taylor Hill's return for holiday 2025, and 2026's newest appearance by the Elizabeth Gillies in their sister brand, twice as usage right now during a promotion, and even the brand new Valentine's campaign with Hailey Bieber. But the question is, will and can it ever be enough? Should these women ever go back to a brand that disrespected them this much? New management or not? Or should they just continue to thrive within their own niches and companies? Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know it is a bit of a departure from what I usually post. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed this video, as I will probably be making more like this, along with my typical type of content. I look forward to reading your thoughts. As always, thank you for watching ciNATEmatic.